Welcome everybody. Looks like we got a couple people here. This is a little unconventional. I usually do these on Saturdays, but I usually do these Saturday afternoons, but I'm just trying out some different things. I was having a little technical difficulties last time on Saturday, so I want to try a new setup, make sure everything's working. I hope everybody is doing well. And see if I can find some people that I don't often get to see who might not be able to make it on Saturday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Alright, we got Mark from Nova Scotia. Pee-wee Uke, welcome. Thanks for joining. For those of you who haven't been here before, the way these work is it's pretty much just kind of a wide open Q&A. If anyone has any questions at all about how to play the mandolin, I'm happy to answer things. Also happy to just play some tunes for y'all. I'm happy to take requests. I can only play them if I know them, and I generally stick to stuff that isn't copyrighted, so I don't get in trouble with the publishing companies. But yeah, I'll play another tune here. That first tune that I played was Big Sciota or Sciota, or Big Scioti or Scioti. It's on my website. People say it a bunch of different ways. It's a river somewhere. I want to say Tennessee. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not near me in New England. But a great old-time tune, kind of bluegrass crossover that you'll hear a lot of people play. Let me know if everything's coming through loud and clear and crisp for you. I hope it is. Cool. Clint is here. You're in Georgia. I bet it's hotter down there than it is up here, but it's not cool up here. It's a warm one. It's going to be in the 90s on Wednesday, which might not be anything special if you're in Georgia, but for a New Englander, that's a hot one. Play another tune here. Cool, glad it's coming through, Mark. Wildwood Flower. I wonder if I can pull that off. I don't really know it that well. little bit of Wildwood Flower, a Carter Family classic. Marcus asks, can you play Mystery Train by Elvis? Maybe some Chuck Berry. Curious about rockabilly on the mandolin, since Monroe had a strong rock and roll vibe sometimes. Unfortunately, I can't do those because they're copyrighted tunes, and I might get flagged on YouTube for doing copyrighted stuff that could get my channel shut down. But I totally know what you mean. I wish I could do those. Great stuff. I also just don't know that stuff very well. I'm more of a fiddle tune and folk singer myself. But yeah, Monroe had a lot of great rock and roll stuff. He had a really rock and roll sensibility about him, both in his playing and his vibe sometimes. But it's great stuff. Maybe I'll play something a little bluegrassy at some point here. Michael from North Carolina is joining us. Thanks for stopping in. Looks like there's a couple new folks here. For anyone who hasn't been to one of these before, it's probably because I do them normally every week on Saturdays at noon. I don't know how long this one will go, but I just needed to test out some video things happening, and thought I'd play a little bit for you and see if anyone had any questions on a Monday night, and see how this works for people, and give people a chance who can't make it on Saturdays to pop in. So thanks for joining. Play another tune here. Maybe a jig. Alright, it's a little tune called The Rolling Waves. Great Irish jig in the key of D. I think it's on my website, but it might not be, actually, now that I think about it. Peggy, hello from Canada, and happy Canada. Thanks for joining us. Happy Canada Day to you as well. Marcus says, how about the fiddle tune Devil's Dream? That's a great tune. I just made a lesson for it on my website. If you don't know it already, you can find it over there, but I'll play a little bit of it. There it is, a little bit of Devil's Dream, a recent tune added to my website. Great suggestion there, Marcus. Appreciate that one. All right, Chip is here. Good to see you. The name of the jig that I played before that tune, The Rolling Waves. It might have a couple other names as well, but I think it's most commonly called The Rolling Waves or The Rolling Wave. Yeah. There's another tune also called The Rolling Wave, or Rolling Waves, that's also known as the Lonesome Jig. It's kind of a common name for a tune, but I think you'll find that one if you look it up further. Michael's got a great question. He says you've posted some videos on easy chord fingerings and chop chords, but wondering if I could request a video on more common voicings for fiddle tunes and movable shapes. Yeah, I have some video. Well, I guess, yeah, I have the chop chord video. I've got what I would recommend. Maybe I have what you're looking for, just maybe under names you're not looking at. Understandably, there's a lot of random stuff up there, and I never quite know what to call stuff. I've got a couple videos in the technique and fundamental section of my website on two-string chords, I think I called them. I can't remember. Let me just look this up real quick. I've got a learn every major and minor chord in the technique and fundamentals section. So yeah, in the chords section of the technique and fundamentals section, we've got simple chords, how to build chords, which is super helpful if you haven't checked that one out already. Every major and minor chord gives you the nice bar shape. Chop chords gives you that bluegrass chop shape. Switching between chords is just kind of talking about a little bit of left-hand technique. Two-string chords, I have it in the key of D and G and A, and I talk a little bit. And that's a lot of the stuff, so that's all in the G and D string. And a lot of that stuff is what I do a lot for fiddle tunes, you know? It's just, by minimizing the number of strings you get going, you can get two strings going. You can move your right hand a little bit more and get more of kind of a train groove going on in your right hand. And it doesn't get in the way. If I was doing that behind a melody, it kind of gets in the way of the melody. But if I just condense that down to two strings, etc. I can't really sing that tune. The tune is Spotted Pony if you're interested. It's on my website, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I do a lot of that stuff. You know, with the mandolin, everybody does something a little bit different. So, you know, just listen to a bunch of players and, you know, try to figure out what they're doing. I don't always know exactly what everybody's doing out there, but, you know, try to figure out what you like to listen to, and then try to figure out what they're doing, because it really is kind of wide open depending on the style of music you're listening to and down to the specific player. All right, got some more questions here. So I hope that's helpful. If there's a follow-up question you can ask Michael that sort of gives me a more specific idea, I'm happy to jump in more depth on that one, because it's a great topic. Adam says, what is the best book for learning the mandolin? I'm not the best source on written material, but I would recommend a couple that I've seen. The Complete Mandolinist by Marilyn Mayer is quite good. Also, Mandolin for Dummies by Don Julin. Also excellent, good laid out, well laid out book. But I'm no expert by any means. That'd be a great question to ask over in the Mandolin Cafe forums. Chip says 2 in a row with your Gibsons. The LSOK. It is. It needs a new set of strings and a little bit of tweaking. I took it to main fiddle camp and it just got really grimy and gross and just needs a little bit of TLC that I haven't quite gotten around to. But oh no, it's still in good shape, and just I was away from this thing for a couple weeks, so it's nice to play around. I finally got this thing set up and really dialed into where I like it. The action's nice and low. It was just a little too high to be super comfortable and play all the time when I first got it. So it's nice to put a little time into it. Oh, can I bring up my audio? I can't. How's the volume for everybody else? I'm about maxed out to where I feel comfortable. And the levels are looking good on my end, but if everybody says the audio is a little low, I'm happy to mess with it. I can also just maybe speak up a little bit. Chip says, how about Rachel, a West Virginia tune in the key of D? I'm not familiar with that tune, but I'll have to look it up. Any plans for a blues lesson? A question from Marcus. I have one simple blues lesson on my website. Oh, where is it? There's a jazz and blues section under the lessons heading. And I just go through kind of a basic, well, it's actually, I guess I do a 2-part, so it's 2 videos, but I go through the, I would say looking kind of that sort of riff, and then that sort of thing. I have a lesson on that in the jazz and blues section of my website. I also in that section I talk about dominant 7 chords, and also maybe in the music theory section I talk about dominant 7 chords. I can't quite remember, but cool. Volume is good in general. Okay, it's on your end. Glad to hear that. Yeah, and beyond that, I'm not that knowledgeable in the blues, so I don't do a whole lot of it myself. I would check out Rich Del Grosso is a great blues mandolin player. Yank Rachel, I think is how you say his name. And Louis Armstrong, not the trumpet player. There's a great documentary called Louis Bluey that is about this blues mandolin and fiddle player. Those are the 3 guys that I'm most familiar with, but I'm not much of a, I don't know the blues as well as some, and I just don't know it very well. Chip says, Tom Ellis, the guy who made my regular main mandolin, had a great birthday party at his house. Alan Mundy was there. Awesome. Tom is a super guy, builds some of the best. He also owns a signed lore and an unsigned lore. Cool. Yeah, I've talked to Tom a couple times on the phone, and he's super, super friendly. Really knowledgeable dude, and I'm honored to have one of his instruments. All right, let's see. Cool. Sean says, any Gypsy swing lessons? That's another thing that I'm not super familiar with. I would check out, I mean, all I can do is give you names. I would check out Jason Anik. He's a great, I mean, well, really, if you're into Gypsy, oops, sorry for knocking the mic there. If you're into Gypsy jazz, I would really recommend just, like learning from fiddle players. That's a really important, part of that tradition, and You'll just fiddle's the same range as the mandolin, so listen to Stefan Grappelli, learn some of his solos. You could probably find transcriptions of them, maybe even mandolin tablature. There could be a Gypsy Jazz mandolin book out there, for all I know. But Jason Anik is another guy who also plays some mandolin, and Aaron Weinstein is another jazz mandolin player who I met. There's a great festival if you're in New England. There's a great festival in Northampton, Massachusetts every year called Django in June. That's all about gypsy jazz. It's great. I went one year. Haven't made it back since, and that was a bunch of years ago. But it's a great event, and if you're into gypsy jazz, that's kind of the place to go, I hear. Mark says, do you have an octave mandolin? If so, would you consider playing a few tunes on it in one of your live sessions? Yes, I'll do that right now. I don't have like a I don't have like a straight octave mandolin. I'll pull out some things that I do have here. So the main other instrument I play besides mandolin, I hope that isn't too loud. Let's find out here. Oh, no, that's good. Is tenor guitar. This is a tenor guitar. And how I have it tuned is mostly like a mandolin. It's G, D, A, and then instead of an E, I have it down to a D, so it's G, D, A, D. It's what a lot of Irish bouzouki players play in. But the bottom three strings are just like a mandolin, so you can... And Chip says, is this a Collings? Yes, this is a Collings. It's all mahogany. Got it recently, and I really like it. Play a little bit of something on this, kind of in the style that I do. Let's make sure it's... I might have to move a little, get the mic dialed in. Okay, here we go. Been a little while. Whew, too late in the evening to try to get that one up out of thin air. I'll play a little somebody has a request for Out on the Ocean. That's a great tune. I'll play a little bit of that on this tenor guitar. So I also have a bouzouki tuned the same way. The only instrument that I have that's tuned straight GDAE is actually, it's a resonator tenor guitar. So like metal body with a resonator cone, and I tune that GDAE, but everything else I tune GDAD so I can get these. Very kind of drony sounding chords. Kind of emulates a bit of like that drop D or dadgad guitar sound. But you can also do kind of jazzy. That sort of sound. And I play this a lot for contra dances. I'm in a contra dance band, and it's just a duo, fiddle player and myself. And so I play tenor guitar to add like another octave below the fiddle rather than playing mandolin, which is in the same range. Yeah, Connell says, now I want to learn to play tenor guitar. I I'm not updating the website regularly. I do have a website called tenorguitarlessons.com where I go through the basics of this tuning, GDAD. It's not something that I'm going to update regularly. I've got like just a beginner series over there. It's not every week at all. I haven't updated in years, really. But it's there, and it'll get you started if you're interested in this tuning. And 3/4 of the strings are the same, or you can just tune it GDAE. You can bring that D string up to an E. I have a heavy enough string on the E string that on the high D that I can't bring it up to E. But you can also just put a lighter gauge string on and go back and forth, or just leave it at E, and then you just have a big mandolin. Recovering Bassist says, is tenor guitar the same as baritone ukulele? No, it's slightly bigger. They look very similar, but baritone ukes are a little bit smaller than this. I'm not sure exactly what the scale length is. For maybe a baritone uke is like 17 or 19 inches. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. This tenor guitar is 23-inch scale length from nut to bridge, and some go down to 21 or maybe even 20. Oh yeah, Out on the Ocean, Chips. Chips, thank you for reminding me. I'd totally forgotten about that. Chips says I've got a 55 Martin 015, all solid mahogany. Yeah, I've got a 530017. That's lovely. That I don't play as much as I'd like. I'm kind of a spruce top guitar guy. But it's alright, Out on the Ocean, great tune. It's on my website if you want to learn it and you don't know it already. There it is, Out on the Ocean. A little distracted by trying to eyeball my levels on the volume there while doing that. But yeah, it's a fun instrument. Highly recommend it. Blue Ridge. Anytime I talk about gear, not sponsored or anything, but it's just the stuff that I buy and the stuff that I've had experience with and the stuff that I like. Blue Ridge was the first tenor guitar that I got. It was great. Couple $100, maybe $400. You can find them used for less. The BR40T, I think it's called. Great starter tenor guitar. Oh, and I just want to back up for a second and say thank you, Chip, for the super chat donation. I missed that going by. Got so excited about the octave mandolin that I missed that first time around. But thank you for the support. Yeah, Chip says I want an Eastman octave. Me too. I saw that Eastman recently started making an octave mandolin. Not that it's like one of the more affordable quality octave mandolins you can get. It's like, I think it's like $700, A style, carved top and back, Eastman octave mandolin. Those look super cool, and I'd love to try one. Yep, Robert's got more information on the baritone uke. Thank you. Yep, they do look similar in that they both have 4 strings. Yeah, I get a lot of questions of, is this a baritone ukulele? Is it a small acoustic bass guitar? Tenor guitars are uncommon enough that a lot of people don't know what they are. I didn't know what they were until I saw one and had to ask. Maybe we'll go back to mandolin now. But yeah, the whole world. That's the nice thing about kind of mandolin. Oops, sorry, that was probably real loud. I whacked right into the mic. I wonder if is that out of the screen yet? Gotta do a little Apologies if that was too loud hitting that mic. Yeah, the nice thing about mandolin is, you know, you learn to play mandolin, and then you have that great, you know, option of going to mandola, which is tuned C-G-D-A, like a viola, slightly lower than the mandolin, or an octave mandolin, a whole octave lower, mandocello, even cello range, mando bass is kind of a different animal, but lots of good things. And then really, once you get mandolin down, you know, almost all the other like strummed or picked fretted instruments use 90% of the same mechanics, and it's just a matter of learning a different tuning. Put a little time into it, and you can get it under your fingers, and there's a whole world of different sounds just outside your door. More instruments than time, unfortunately. Sheldon says, would you happen to know the current value of a Lincoln A mandolin circa 1970? I've never heard of Lincolns. I would recommend, I can tell you who would, is on the Mandolin Cafe. People over there, especially if you have it in your possession, you can take pictures of it and, you know, show them the label or whatever and the condition. People over there I'm sure will have run into them before and be able to help you out, kind of learning more about it. Connell says, I don't think I've ever seen a Mando bass. They're pretty rare, aren't they? Yeah. Gibson made some Mando basses back in the teens and the 1900, the like 1900s, I guess is maybe how you'd say it. There was a big mandolin orchestra craze back around the turn of the century, and a bunch of people, you know, mandolin was a real popular instrument, and everybody was playing them. Every town, you know, even the little town that I grew up in, that, you know, when I grew up and it had like 5,000 people back in the teens, there was a mandolin orchestra in my town. And so they had all the different sizes of mandolin to kind of fill out that kind of the pitch range from the really high mandolins down to the Mando basses. I've never played one. I've seen one once, just kind of like hanging up in a shop. They're enormous. They're totally huge, and I have no idea how to play them. Well, cool. Great questions so far. It looks like there's a bunch of people here that, at least since last time I looked at the number of people watching. If you're new here, welcome. Usually this happens on Saturday at noon. Most Saturdays that I'm around, it's a little sporadic in the summer. But I figured I'd do one on a Monday night just to see who shows up. Thanks for joining in. If you got questions, by all means, ask away. I love hearing what people are working on. If you got requests for tunes I can play, I'll play them if I know them. I don't do copyrighted material on here, so I don't get in trouble with anybody. But happy to play traditional tunes, or songs even. Play another tune here. Let's see, I'll get out of the key of G. Been in the G all day. Played Jim Shank. It's a great A tune. Pretty sure there's a lesson for it on my website. It's a little bit of Jim Shank and a little bit of me being out of tune. Little tuning intermission. Thank you, Connell and Robert, for the super chats, donations. I appreciate it. Appreciate it so much that I'll even get a little bit more in tune. Just for you guys. That's better. Let's see. Chip says, how about Old Gray Cat? I can never remember how that tune goes. I know I've played it, but it never comes to me off the top of my head, and I don't know it well enough to play it on my own. Christopher says, is that your old Gibson you're playing? Yep, this is a 1924. It's a Gibson A. They made kind of various numbers from A Junior, which was the most no frills, to an A, and this is just like the straight A, and then A1, 2, 3, 4. And as the numbers go higher, they get fancier. So this is close to the bottom. Oh, and I let's see. Connell says, out of curiosity, is tuning by ear something that comes naturally the more you play? I would say yes and no. It definitely requires kind of practice on its own right. It's, you know, there's a certain level of accuracy that you can get to with a. It depends on the instrument and on the tuner. You know, you can get really. I'm just looking through the chat, and Robert asked me just as I took off the tuner, what the instrument was. Yep, Gibson. Glad I could answer that. But yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, tuning by ear. Definitely, you know, I think one thing to to get used to is, you know, it's good to practice because it's a nice skill to have, and especially to get really kind of dead on with your tuning, or if your tuner's acting up, or if you lose your tuner, having the ability to tune by ear is really helpful. One thing you can do is hit the 7th fret. For example, the 7th fret on the D string should be the same as your open A string. So right there, that's not right. And if you hit them together, that doesn't sound good. So you bring your A string up, and you can check that note. Oh, getting closer. You can also just hear, this comes with practice, you can sort of hear these beats, this little like wah 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 in the tuning, and as you get closer, the sort of the beat gets slower and slower until wah wah wah. Until you're right in tune, and it kind of hits this nice, you get less of that wah 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 wah, and just levels out to wah 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 wah, and you just get a note. But yeah, definitely it's an interesting skill to develop, and I think it just takes, you know, some practice. Work on getting that 7th fret and open next string. That'll help you out, and then, you know, start to listen closely, and, you know, just trust your ear. Everyone I've ever met, whether they know it or not, has had a better ear than they sort of allowed themselves to think they had. And most people are unless you're like actually tone deaf, which almost no one is. A lot of people say like, oh, I'm tone deaf, but then all I have to do is play this. If that sounds bad to you, you're not tone deaf, because if you're tone deaf, that literally means you can't tell the difference between a low note and a high note. So you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that. It would just sound monotonous. So just, you know, trust your ears and try to make things sound as good as possible when you're tuning up, and, you know, see if you can divert your attention away from the tuner a little bit. And you know, if you've been tuning with a tuner, you'll have the sound in your head. You're just used to. It's kind of like reading off a sheet versus learning by ear. You know, you're reading off the tuner and saying, okay, the tuner's telling me I'm right. But you can also your ear. You know, if you're looking at your tuner and it says you're right, but it doesn't sound good, you'll know, and you'll say, oh, maybe that's, you know, maybe it's an A sharp instead of an A, or an A flat, or something, and something's wrong with your tuner sometimes. I know that they've got a lot of buttons that you can hit. Arnold asks what kind of strings I use. Once again, whenever I talk about gear, no free stuff or sponsorships, or not getting paid to say anything. I use D'Addario J74s on this mandolin, which is the medium gauge, and on my Ellis I use J75s, which are a slightly heavier gauge. Yeah, that's what I use. And all the gear on my website, if you go to my website and go to About, you can see all the gear that I use. I just have a big list. Let's see. I'll catch up with the chat here. You play Forked Deer. Haven't heard it in a while. It's a great tune. I can play a little bit of that. If I can remember how it goes. Terry asks, do you prefer A style over F style? And no worries about being new. Everybody's new at some point, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. Glad you're joining us. I think I do prefer A styles over F styles. I think the biggest thing for me is just the price. In general, an A style and an F style in the same sort of fanciness level, made by the same maker, is going to cost. An F style is going to be about twice as expensive as an A style, and have more or less the same sound. There's might be slight variations in the sound of an F style over an A style, but I think what I've found from playing a lot of mandolins, and I'm no expert, and I'm no like acoustician or acoustic engineer, maybe is the right word. You know, adding that mass is going to do something to the sound, but I've found more variation between like a couple mandolins of the same style than necessarily like an A style versus an F style. You know, I think there's a lot of variation just in wood itself. So, you know, making I think, there's not a whole lot of sound difference between an A and an F style, and the price for an A style is drastically less. So that sort of was my motivator, and I've just come to really like A styles in general. Carl asked if you could play Peacock Rag. I don't know that one off the top of my head. All right, lots of requests for Forked Deer. Back Up and Push is a great tune that I can't really play. I never really learned that one. I'll play a little bit of Forked Deer if I can remember how it goes. I don't know if I have a lesson on this or not. I have kind of I think there's a couple different B parts that people play. I don't know where I got mine. It might just be an amalgamation of various versions, but I'll play you what I play anyway. I have no claims to know how this tune actually goes, but this is what I do. There it is. Some kind of Forked Deer anyway. I love that tune. I should play that more. I also just love the name Forked Deer. I have no idea why that tune is called Forked Deer. Maybe somebody know, and why isn't it forked? I don't have the answers. Maybe somebody out there does. I don't know anything about that tune. It's a good one though. Chip says, how about Staten Island Hornpipe? It's a great tune. I hadn't thought about that tune in a long time. Played it at Maine Fiddle Camp back in June. I guess it's not that far out of June, but way back last month, 3 days ago. But it's a tune that I can't really play it on my own. I always follow people doing that one. Can't remember how it goes off the top of my head. Recovering Bassist says, I noticed just playing solos, I tend to use a lot more of the two-finger chords than the chop chords. I think in part because of laziness, but also the strings. I like the sound of strings ringing more when it's just me playing. Yeah, I do a lot of two-finger chords as well. It's sometimes I just do a lot of one-finger chords, really. It's especially, there's something to be said for really filling in that space, It's the difference between and it really fills in the space, and especially when it's just you, it's nice to fill up that space. And so, rightly so, if it's just you, play those big 2-finger chords. Those are great, and they fill in that space really nicely. So go for it. You're on the right track. Connell says, I've noticed when I'm learning a tune, I'll learn it using only downstrokes slowly and then try to speed up and then use upstrokes as well. It's a bit like unlearning the song when I add upstrokes. Yeah, I did the same thing when I was starting out. It's definitely something that maybe is worth trying to get out of that habit, because if you can get into the habit of just always having your right hand go up and down and up and down, if you can get in the habit of just getting that down, up really solid, sometimes what it can be is just repeating notes. So if you take like Flop-Eared Mule, for example, you're going to take all those notes and you're just going to turn it into all eighth notes. So normally you would have down, 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 up, down, up, down, down. But you're just going to turn it into downs and ups the whole way through. Down, up, 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 down, up. And you have to repeat strings. And notes. But it'll really get your right hand moving. And if you can sort of get that into your playing, it's one less thing that you really end up not having to think about. And it just becomes kind of part of your groove, and it'll really help out your rhythm if you can get into that habit. Oh, cool. Chip, you just have all the answers about fiddle tunes. I love it. Chip says, Forked-Deer is the name of a river through Tennessee. It's also a favorite Texas fiddle competition. Cool. And the river is forked like the tune. It's a southern thing. Why say it in one when you can say it in three? Yeah. That's the truth. That's great. Awesome. Good to know. That's why I do these things, is so I can learn stuff. Awesome. Well, it's been about an hour. I may log out soon, but thank you all so much for joining in. I'll maybe play one more tune, and if you got any last-minute questions, I'll let them roll in and then answer them. But let's start wrapping up here. Let's see. Play whatever this tune is, and then hopefully think of a name. Whoa. That was exciting. Thank you, Christopher, for saying Cole Harbor Bend, because it was not coming into my head. That's the name of that tune, Cole Harbor Bend. It's on my website. It's also on my Old Time Mandolin album that you can find through my website. Yeah, one of my favorite tunes, a little bit crooked, very sweet. Love it. Glad you learned it. Well, thank you, everybody, once again. Oh, one question, maybe from Robert about tremolo. I would say check out, I have a whole lesson on my website in the Technique and Fundamentals section under the Lessons tab. It's going to be under Right Hand Technique, and then it's How to Play Tremolo. But yeah, once again, thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you want to see more of these and you're awake in that time of the day, depending on your time zone, Saturdays at noon Eastern Standard Time. I tend to do these most weeks. It's a little sporadic in the summer once again, but yeah, there it is. Robert, my name is Baron Collinshill, and that's who I am. And more information over at my website, MandoLessons.com. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining in. See you in the next one. Maybe I'll do another one in the evening this week, or maybe I will see you on Saturday. In any case, have a great night. See you again soon. Bye-bye.